So just a few weeks ago, the administration dropped what some are calling a bombshell proposal, the Great Healthcare Plan. We're talking about a plan that could totally shake up how Americans pay for insurance and prescription drugs, and it's landed right in the middle of a huge debate over rising costs. So what's actually in this thing, and could it even work? Let's decode. And look, to really get why this is happening right now, you have to start with people like Cynthia Freeman. She's just one of millions of middle-class Americans who, as of January 1st, 2026, are staring down the barrel of soaring insurance premiums. So you see, this isn't just some abstract policy debate. For so many people, it's a real crisis at the kitchen table about whether they can even afford to stay covered. And if you want a sense of the sheer scale of the money we're talking about here, get this. Just one day before this new plan was announced, a single company, Kaiser Permanente, agreed to pay out a record-breaking settlement of over $500 million for alleged Medicare fraud. That's the kind of money that's swirling around in the very system this new plan is trying to fix. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into the problem that kicked all this off, the health insurance squeeze. Then we'll dive into the proposed solution, this great healthcare plan, and its most radical piece, global drug pricing. After that, we'll get into the thick of it. We'll weigh the arguments from both supporters and critics. And finally, we'll tackle the big question, what in the world happens now? Okay, so first up, the health insurance squeeze. This is the affordability crisis that really set the stage for this entire debate. The date you really need to circle on your calendar here is December 31st, 2025. That's the day the enhanced subsidies, the money that made ACA marketplace plans more affordable for millions, officially expired. And the results? Well, starting the very next day, January 1st, 2026, those same people saw their premium payments shoot through the roof, creating an urgent problem both politically and personally. You can imagine that spike in premiums created a massive political firestorm, which of course brings us to our second section, the administration's proposed answer to the whole crisis, the Great Healthcare Plan. So this Great Healthcare Plan is trying to attack high costs from a bunch of different angles. Supporters, like Senator Eric Nesbitt, they say the goals are pretty clear: slash drug prices, bring down premiums, and force more transparency. But honestly, one of the most interesting ideas here is a fundamental shift in how the government helps out. Instead of giving tax credits to insurance companies, the plan wants to send that money straight to you, the consumer. So you're probably wondering, how would they do that? Well, it really boils down to two key things. First, instead of those tax credits, the plan would send money directly into Americans' health savings accounts, letting them shop for their own insurance. And second, it wants to fully fund something called cost-sharing reductions, or CSRs. So what in the world are these CSRs? This is a really crucial point. They don't lower your monthly bill. Instead, they're payments that help lower-income folks with their actual out-of-pocket costs, things like deductibles and copays. Now, the government used to fund these, but that stopped back in 2017. This new plan wants to bring that funding back, and the thinking is that that move alone could help lower premiums for everyone. All right, that brings us to Section 3. And folks, this is the most ambitious and, without a doubt, the most controversial part of the entire plan. We're talking about linking US drug prices directly to what other countries pay. The idea at the heart of this is called Most Favored Nation, or MFN pricing. Now, this concept has been debated for years. The principle is actually pretty simple. The US government, especially Medicare, shouldn't pay more for a drug than the lowest price paid by another similar developed country. The goal here is to stop what supporters call global freeloading on the backs of American consumers. And hey, this isn't just some vague idea anymore. The plan lays out a specific, very detailed rule to make this happen for certain drugs under Medicare Part B. It's officially called the Global Benchmark for Efficient Drug Pricing Model, or for short, the GLOBE model. So how would this GLOBE model actually work? Well, the proposal breaks it down into 4 steps. Step 1, you gather up all the data on what a specific drug costs in up to 19 other developed countries. Step 2, you standardize everything, convert it to US dollars and milligrams so you're comparing apples to apples. Now, step 3 is where it gets really interesting. They adjust each price based on that country's economic strength, its GDP. And finally, step 4, they crunch all those numbers to calculate a weighted average, and that becomes the official US price for Medicare. So as you can probably guess, a plan this huge has ignited a massive debate, which leads us right into Section 4. Let's get into the main arguments from both the people who love this plan and the people who, well, really don't. And you can really see the two different worlds here. On one side, you have supporters like Senator Nesbitt,
who frame this as a battle of people versus special interests. They point to estimates from the CBO that this could slash premiums by over 10%. But on the other side, critics from places like the Schaffer Institute are raising some major red flags. They warn that the system could be easily gamed with secret foreign rebates, that we'd basically be letting other countries set US prices, and the drug companies might just pull their products out of those cheaper markets altogether, which would make the whole model totally useless.
And the critiques don't stop there. A lot of policy experts are saying the plan is just a framework. Some have even called it analyzing air because it's so light on the details. A huge point of concern is what's not in the plan. The White House press secretary actually confirmed it would have no impact on protections for pre-existing conditions. And then there's the big one, the fear coming from the pharmaceutical industry, that these kinds of price controls will absolutely crush the incentive to invest in R&D for new cures. And that industry opposition is intense. This quote from John Crowley, who's the head of the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, couldn't be more blunt. He's framing MFN pricing not just as bad policy, but as a direct threat to the entire American biotech industry, and basically a gift to global competitors like China. It really shows you the high-stakes economic and even national security arguments being used against this plan.
So what we have is a massive problem, a pretty radical solution, and some incredibly fierce opposition. That brings us to our final section. With all of this conflict, where does this plan actually go from here?
Let's just put this on a timeline to see how fast everything is moving. The problem really kicks into high gear on January 1st when those subsidies expire. Just 2 weeks later, boom, this plan is announced. And a proposed start date for this new drug pricing model? This fall, October 1st. That is an incredibly aggressive schedule. But here is the absolute crucial point to remember. This is not a law. It's a framework of ideas and a proposed rule from a federal agency. It has not passed Congress, and pretty much everyone expects it's going to face a mountain of lawsuits from the pharmaceutical and insurance industries. In fact, a similar attempt to do MFN pricing back in 2020 was ultimately blocked by a federal court, which sets a pretty clear precedent for the fight that's coming. So that leaves all of us with the one question at the very heart of this debate. Supporters see a bold move to finally get costs under control. Critics see a flawed idea that could unravel the very system of innovation that creates new medicines in the first place. So will tying our prices to a global benchmark be the cure for America's healthcare crisis? Or will it just end up importing a whole new set of problems from overseas?